In one of our previous videos, we talked about how Loki could be one of the key pieces in the creation of the TVA. Since in time travel stories there are usually time cycles where the end is also the beginning. But a recent theory could explain how Loki would end up releasing Kang and inadvertently creating the TVA. According to this theory, in the second season, we will see Loki and Mobius travel to the past of the TVA before the sacred timeline existed. They would meet a young variant of Kang there, possibly the same one who would later become He Who Remains. Want to know more? Then stay tuned to this video. And for videos of your favorite series and movies, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Welcome to the Oasis Geek. If something is still a mystery in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, who's the real villain in this story? Although different variants of Kang have been shown, we have yet to see who Kang the Conqueror is, or what the origin story of He Who Remains is. But perhaps this could change. In the last few days, a theory has been making the rounds on the internet, which tries to explain the origin of He Who Remains, which would be a rather complicated time cycle, but which starts with Loki. This theory was born on the Reddit forum, where a user called the Mediocre Critic stated the following. Season 2 of the Loki series is already a timey whimsy mess, in the best possible way, but I may have cracked the code on the plot and ending of the series. Time travel shenanigans. In the season opener, we say Loki travels between different time periods of the TVA and affects the future with things he does in the past. At one time, Kang's presence is in the open, while in another, He Who Remains is hiding behind the facade of the Timekeepers. So what happened? So here's my take. Loki and Mobius will go into the past and find Victor Timely. I believe that this version of Kang is actually the past version of He Who Remains. Here's how that breaks down. Loki created his own villain. In the past, the TVA was run by Kangs, as is evident by the Kang statues in the TVA in the past. A time-traveling Loki and Mobius find a Kang variant named Victor Timely in the past. They help him escape the past and bring him to the TVA. Once in the TVA, this Kang causes a war and takes over the TVA, wipes the minds of the people working there, and eliminates any and all timelines and Kangs he views as a threat. Ironically, Loki is responsible for He Who Remains' rise to power and the future sacred timeline. This is why He Who Remains picked Loki's to come to him at the end of time. Loki was always part of his story, from the beginning to the end. This is quite an interesting and probable theory. First, let's talk about what is known about the sacred timeline. As we know, the continuous timeline was created by He Who Remains, also known as Kang the Protector, after defeating his own variants in a devastating multiversal war. We saw this explanation at the end of Loki's first season. By merging different realities, Kang managed to isolate this sacred timeline, separating it from the chaotic multiverse, and thus avoiding future confrontations with other versions of himself. To preserve the stability of the timeline he had built, Kang established the Time Variance Authority. The TVA agents had the mission of constantly monitoring the sacred timeline in search of any irregularity or deviation that could lead to an alternate reality. When any timeline anomaly was detected, it was immediately pruned, correcting the problem before it spread. Thus, the TVA acted as a type of immune system, detecting and eliminating any virus from the multiverse that infected the sacred timeline. This work was possible thanks to the machine that Kang built on the Citadel at the end of time, which kept the fragile sacred timeline isolated and stable. However, after Kang's death, this mechanism began to fail, causing the sacred timeline to begin to fragment again into multiple realities. Despite this, as we see in the second season, the TVA is determined to save the unified timeline created by Kang, even in his absence. Now, in the previews of this second season, we have seen a new variant of Kang called Victor Timely. This scientist is trapped in the past, and it is possible that Loki is looking for him to help repair the machines that are in the TVA, to control the flow of timelines in the multiverse. But who is Victor Timely? Victor Timely is a divergent version of Kang the Conqueror, who appears in Marvel Comics. Determined to conquer the 20th century instead of the 21st, he travels back in time and finds the town of Timely, Wisconsin, in 1991, under the name Victor Timely. Timely creates a corporate empire, preempting inventors like Henry Ford and Thomas Edison. He builds factories and develops advanced robotic technology. He also establishes on Timely the base known as Chronopolis, which serves as headquarters for all future versions of himself. When he is not in Chronopolis, Timely uses robotic versions of himself that age and die, allowing him to fake his death and assume the identity of his son, Victor Timely Jr., and later pose as his grandson. This means that this variation Loki will find is not benevolent. It is a person who takes advantage of his knowledge to create his empire in the past, and is likely to end up betraying them. However, there is another option, and that is that this version is really Kang the Conqueror. Ever since He Who Remains was revealed, fans have constantly wondered where the real Kang the Conqueror is. In previous videos, I mentioned that the Kang we saw in Ant-Man and the Wasp really isn't Kang the Conqueror. Kang the Conqueror could be Victor Timely, who would take control of the TVA because of Loki. Undoubtedly, this theory is very likely and interesting, so we just have to wait for the next episodes to see if this will really be the origin story of Kang the Conqueror. The story of Loki seems to be a time cycle, which has started long before Loki was recruited. But tell me, what are your thoughts about all this? Is this theory true? And for more videos of your favorite series and movies, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. You are on The Oasis Geek.